Hi there. Welcome to 5 questions. Oh, wait a second. 5 points a day to ace PMP 2021 exams. This is volume 20. All these 5 points are taken from this book, which is called Ninja Notes. It's already published on all sites of Amazon. Well, in India, it's only available in Kindle and it's all colored. But in many other places, particularly in US, we also have the paperback edition, which is again in all color printing. This is from my Read and Pass Notes publication division, and this book has been doing rather well. Anyway, let's look at those 5 points. Some of the things that people I see are getting confused a lot in PMP exams, and a point on which a lot of questions do get asked in PMP exams is team charter versus ground rules. Now, people find it difficult to answer questions or even understand the scenario because clarity does not seem to exist so much among participants about the difference between team charter and ground rules. See, there is a process called plan resources. Now, one of the outputs of the plan resources is team charter, right? Now, team charter contains the ground rules. So when you have a team charter, it is basically a collaboration document which actually ensures that all the team members they collaborate. They contain the rules, they contain the collaboration methods, the productivity, what I call concepts that would be followed, how would the performance be measured, how would the team take decisions, how would they actually come together, what kind of team building activities would they have. This is basically called a team charter. Now, when you look at the team charter, one of the elements of the team charter is called the ground rules. It's not that ground rules is separate, it's part of the team charter. Team charter contains the ground rules. However, the questions in PMP exam also come in a manner that they are specifically looking for ground rules as a correct answer, right? So how do you know the difference? Well, the difference is if the question scenario is talking about collaboration, it is talking about team outings, team work, talking about taking decisions, how they arrive at taking decisions, team, what I call, assignment of roles to individual team members, that's all part of team charter. But the moment the scenario talks about absence or presence of rules, code of conduct, do's and don'ts, well, that is they're talking about ground rules. Now, absence of ground rules will always give rise to a little more number of conflicts. People will complain about, hey, this person is speaking over me in meetings, or they are not responding in time, they've used some form of racial language. All right, so basically absence of ground rules will always give rise to misunderstanding and conflict. So this is a very key point that you need to understand, that any scenario where they talk about people having conflicts about misunderstandings, well, one of the reasons why that is happening is the absence of ground rules. You'll be surprised how many questions show up on ground rules. But then how to know the difference, whether they're talking about ground rules or team charter? Again, team charter is the overall document. If they talk about team building activities, coming together, team decision abilities, all of that is part of team charter. Only the rules, code of conduct is present in ground rules. All right, so I hope this clarifies. Let's move on to the second point. Team norm. A lot of people think that team norm is the same as team culture. Well, it's basically what leads to culture. But what is more important is that how do you know that team norm is the correct answer, or what is team norm? Because they might give you a scenario and then you'll probably try to understand, okay, if you don't understand what is team norm, you may not be able to figure out that the scenario is talking about team norms. What is a norm? Before I continue, let me just give you an example from your own personal life, right? There are a lot of families which do not allow non-vegetarian stuff to be cooked. Now, some of the family members can have non-vegetarian as long as they have outside, outside of home. Now, this was a rule. Now, when you got added into the family, you were born there, you came to consciousness, and then you found these rules, right? And you may have resisted against these rules, but the parents maintained that rule. And over a period of time, it became the family norm. Now, when your friends come over and you say, well, you know what, hey, let's go out, let's have some non-vegetarian stuff with a beer or something, because even though your parents may or may not be there anymore, and you may be living separately, may or may not be, I mean, as long as if it's the same house, you may have this feeling, you know what, let's go out, to one of the eating restaurants, one of these eating joints, and have some non-vegetarian stuff over there with beer. Yeah, but they will not have it at home because that's a norm, a family norm, which, traverses through generations, and soon it becomes a culture, right? That is how family cultures are built, which is based on values. That is how entire societal cultures are built. This is how a national culture is built, and that is how an organizational culture is built. Then how do you think a project team would be any different? That's basically what it is. See, in the beginning, you had the team charter, which also contains the ground rules. Remember, team charter contains the ground rules, and because of this, right, the whole idea of the team charter is to create a framework for the team members to work within. Over a period of time, these framework and rules will be taken for, I wouldn't say the word granted. They'll just be accepted, and people will start using it without even referring to the team charter, because it's now ingrained into their psyche during the life cycle of the project, and that is called team norm. Team charters are supposed to produce team norm. Now, why do we need team norm? Well, the practical aspect of this, because of this, you have less supervision. You would have, as a project manager, as a leader, you would have to conduct less supervision. And at the same time, you would have a lot less number of conflicts, because people have bought into this framework. They work in their roles. They work the way in a collaboration manner, a collaborative manner. They follow the rules of conduct, code of conduct. They follow the ground rules. There are hardly any, problems, and therefore your supervision comes down, and so does the conflict, which actually directly affects your overall performance and productivity. So team norm is a very important concept. I hope now you understand it very well, and when you see those scenario questions, you would be able to understand exactly whether this particular scenario question is talking about team norm or not. All right, let's move on to point number 3. Well, this is the shape of you. Well, I wrote that because there's a song, The Shape of You. Well, in PMP, and in particularly adaptive methodology world, we have skill shapes, right? Now, in the traditional world, where we had super specialists, we only needed I-shaped kind of personalities, I-shaped skills. Why? What is I-shaped? Well, a person would have deep skill, one deep skill, right? They would know everything about that particular skill, but they would not have much knowledge. Forget about much knowledge. They would have zero knowledge about any other skill, but they were the best in what they did. But this is fantastic in those kind of projects where you have like traditional projects, right? Things like waterfall, what I call predictive is the right word, right? Over there, you know what kind of skills are needed, and the requirements have to be very clear upfront, and then you hire specialists to just to get the work done. That's I-shaped. But as the world has become more complex, you have more iterative based projects. So you have iterative, you have incremental, you have agile, you have hybrid, and suddenly you realize that different iterations would need different skills. And if you have to keep on changing the team members for each of the iterations, that team bonding would not happen, because the iterations are pretty small, maximum 1 month. And then when they realize that, we need cross-functional team members. Now, cross-functional does not mean that they belong to different functions. It simply means that they have different functional skills. In agile and adaptive, the word cross-functional has a different meaning. It simply means one single person has, or a team is made up of people with different skills, or one person has multiple skills, so that they are flexible enough to take different roles based on what they get in different iteration. So what is T-shaped? T-shaped is one deep specialization and a general knowledge about a few other things, right? But then you have pie-shaped. You can call it pie-shaped, you can call it fee-shaped, depending on which country and which kind of pronunciation dialect that you subscribe to. You have two major deep specializations, two major skills, deep skills, but you also have broad general knowledge, right? For example, I really know how to drive cars, right? I have a deep sense of driving cars, even repairing to a certain extent. And I have a very deep understanding of motorcycles. But I have driven tractors. So if push come to shove, I can actually drive tractors, but I may not be able to drive it so well. But yeah, more or less in a general situation, I'll get the work done, right? So that's basically what it means. So pie shape, but that means now I can handle more things. But the most revered skill sets is called the comb shape. Now remember, in PMP exams, sometimes comb shaped is also known as paint drip. Like you take a paintbrush and when you kind of put it on a slab, different droplets of, paint trickling down. Well, that's called paint drip. Yeah, but mostly it is called comb shaped. It means that a person has a lot of general knowledge, but they also have multiple deep specializations. Now this is like a commando, right? They are very highly trained and they are in demand when it comes to adaptive methodologies. So I hope you understand what is the meaning of these I-shaped, T-shaped, pie-shaped, P-shaped, whatever you want to call it, and comb-shaped. This is the shape of you as a skill. All right, let's move on to point number 4. There is a word which has been going around which is called empowerment. I'll talk about team empowerment a little later. In fact, it'll come automatically. We talk about we need to empower children, we need to empower our youth, we need to empower the Western because they have a very different kind of a culture where women are usually subjugated in the history, and therefore they have this concept of female or women empowerment. Now, the point is, in those cultures, in those point of times, they used to literally not allow ladies to do anything. They have to be at home. Even at home, the decision making were with men. Those kind of things, right? So, and it still continues in several countries. Now, what happens is now we are talking about that let's empower them because it's affecting the whole society from productivity to building up future generations, the quality of value that they can give to the nation. The entire nation building is suffering because of this, and therefore they're talking about empowerment. So what is empowerment? Empowerment does not simply mean, hey, I give you better education, nothing of that kind. It simply means just like anybody else, they need to have goals. They should have a growth philosophy, which they should have certain morals that they subscribe to, which could come from culture. They have the power to take decisions. Of course, these decisions are within a specific role of morality as well as within the role of your area of influence, right? So you may have a scope within which you have certain power to take decisions, right? And you could have access to a lot of information, either to the market, either to decision making. You should be able to generate your own learning path, and you should have a positive thinking. Now, when you apply this from the social empowerment to the team, basically what happens is that team members are empowered by simply giving them goals and then hands off, right? They have an area of influence. They cannot influence the entire project. Well, that's the job of the project manager or the project leader as well as the sponsor, but they have enough power to take decisions within their specific iteration. Let's put it this way. So they become self-organized. In order for a team to be self-organized, they need to be empowered. So you have team, you empower them, they'll become self-organized, and therefore you have self-governed teams. This is how it works, right? So this is the meaning of the term team empowerment. Certain decisions teams can take on their own. They can, within a scope, within a limit, a overall boundary, they can decide who does what. They can decide their own learning. They might even have their own budget for learning or doing certain things, even team building, and it is left to them. They can do it on themselves. So they have a sense of belongingness, a sense of achievement, and the best part is the project managers, project leaders have to do less supervision. You unleash the skills and the power of a team by letting them be, right? That is the meaning of the term empowerment, right? So I hope you can see it reduces conflicts, it increases collaboration, it actually further creates buy-in of the team members towards the project, and the best part is it actually makes them self-organized. They can take a lot of decisions on their own and get the work done. So there's less interference from less instructions from the project manager. That's the meaning of the term team empowerment. Now, why were we not talking about team empowerment earlier? Well, we were, but from a different angle. See, when you're in a predictive project, the entire plan is known to the project manager. Of course, he makes it to the team members. That's called buy-in. But rest of the project is done through instructions. Okay, this is what has to be done because this is what's in the schedule. So that's instruction based. But as we got into more complex projects where the requirements are not known, a lot of things are not known, we are in an evolutionary project, and in such cases we need team members who have a lot of space within which to actually adjust themselves as long as we get the objective. And for that we need empowerment. Less instructions, more empowerment, right? It's just a change in methodology because of the change in world complexity. All right, so that takes care of point number 4, and I hope you'll be able to answer questions connected to the scenario because I've explained it so well. No matter what questions come, when it comes to empowerment, you will nail it. Bang on. All right, now let's move on to the last point, point number 5, fishbowl. Now, what is a fishbowl, right? It has a completely different meaning if you go to Thailand. I have an office in Thailand. When I went there, when I used this word fishbowl, they started laughing. And then I came to know, well, this is not a good forum to talk about it. Well, it's something to do with the CD, the other side of the industry that they have. Thailand is famous for. Now, fishbowl basically is like you have this fishbowl. This is not very popular in where we live. It's more of an aquarium. But fishbowl is something that people, particularly in US, they keep a lot of. People like to have goldfish, and they claim that they have a short memory, which I doubt is probably just to satisfy themselves that they've just put a fish in such a small bowl. And because they have a short memory and they forget. So they're probably just trying to sell fish by, drumming down the torture that these fish go through. But that's a different point. So in a fish bowl, you can look at the fish from any direction, right? And the fish can look at all the world that's happening around it, right? But what has fish bowl got to do with project management? You see, what is happening is now we have to do more of a virtual work because of a lot of things with the medical situation we have, like the corona, right, and the different versions of it, and also because it actually over a period of time we realized that a lot of work could actually be done with people sitting at home and they don't have to travel. It reduces cost, it reduces overheads, and it actually makes people more relaxed, and the work, people tend to work better. But the problem is that when you work in a physically co-located environment, the team bonding that you get is unbelievable. Something that you're not able to generate no matter how many team building initiatives that you do virtually, you are not able to get that absolute team bonding. Now, why does that happen? See, in a co-located environment, we have basically, people sitting together, nearby, and they don't always limit their interactions with each other only from the point of view of work. They'll simply get up, hey, nice shirt you're wearing. Hey, listen, my daughter's got this fever. Any doctor? They talk about movies. They talk about the latest shows in town. So that's actually what creates bonding. They share lunch. they talk to each other, they get to know each other better. So that's the beauty of working in a co-located physical environment. Now, many times this is not possible. Most of the time when we meet in virtual platforms, we meet only because of work. And therefore, we are only talking to each other from a working environment. We hardly get a time to get to know the other person better. This is one of the biggest problems with what I call a virtual platform. So many companies, what they do is, let's say we have a team sitting in, let's say US, we have a team sitting in Japan, we have a team sitting in India. What they would do is they would have a dedicated, continuous, I would not say 24 hours, nobody works for 24 hours, but something like, well, if you're working from Japan to India and US, I think you would need a 24 hours because somebody would be working at some other point of time. We've covered all the time zones, right? So let's say you have a 24-hour video feed, and the reason for that is during the time where there was an overlap between the American team and the Indian team, they could actually look at each other. Even if they don't have a meeting, since the video is on, they get this feeling that they are co-located. They can simply get up, any one of the person can simply say, hey, what is it that you guys are eating? I've never seen something like this. Oh, this is this and this is that. So they're speaking to each other just as if across, the video framework, across the web presence, as if they were co-located. And this creates a better, what you call, working environment. It creates better bonding. Same thing, like the moment there's a overlap between Indian team and the Japan team, they can have this live video feed continuously, even if they don't have a meeting. One person can simply get up and get the attention of one person on the Japan side. Hey, I just sent you an email. Could you reply to me in 2 minutes, right? And I'm waiting for that. So just the way we do in a co-located working environment, right? So this is the beauty of Fishbowl. Now, why Fishbowl? Because Fishbowl is one of the most marvelous methods of creating bonding. So if in PMP exam, they have scenarios where they're saying that people are working in a virtual environment, they are not having good bondings, there are a lot of misunderstandings. Well, one of the most powerful answers for that is to create a fishbowl. Or you could simply say, the question could say, hey, what is missing? What has the project manager forgotten to do? They have forgotten to create a live video feed, which is also called the fishbowl. Remember, fishbowl is nothing but live, dedicated, continuous video feed. Got it? All right. So I know I took a little bit of time, but if once you understand things better, you would be able to answer questions better. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Well, thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe and press the notification bell button so that you get notifications. Go ahead and comment, engage with me so that I can reply to you if you have any questions, right? And do share, because we don't advertise at all. So do share. All right. Thank you for watching. Catch you later.